The alien diplomat, High Minister Zwierkan, stepped off the shuttle ramp and into the human government's hall. His elongated pupils adjusted to the artificial light, scanning the room. No armed guards, no show of force, just a row of human officials standing still, watching. Then, as one, they smiled. A chill ran through his rigid spine. He had studied them, of course. Read the reports. Watched the war footage. But nothing prepared him for the unsettling sight of those bared teeth, the deliberate curl of their lips, the silent, unreadable expression that had haunted so many alien commanders before him. A human in a dark suit stepped forward. His identification translated into Zwierkan's neural implant, Secretary General Daniel Wright. The leader of Earth's unified government. A man responsible for countless tactical victories. And yet, his face betrayed none of the cold efficiency expected of a war strategist. Minister Zwierkan, Wright said, extending a hand. Welcome to Earth. The diplomat hesitated but completed the strange human ritual, pressing his clawed fingers into the offered palm. It was warm. Too warm. And still, that smile. The honor is mine, Secretary, Zwierkan replied. I appreciate the willingness of your people to negotiate. Of course, Wright said smoothly, gesturing toward a long table where the others had already taken their seats. We always welcome peaceful solutions. Always. Zwierkan's mind latched onto the word. The Zilthar Dominion had learned the hard way how human peace was often preceded by absolute devastation. He had seen the wreckage of their fleets, heard the desperate screams of warlords who had underestimated these creatures. He took his seat, his scales shifting in discomfort against the cushioned chair. His own delegation sat behind him, silent, tense. He could smell their unease. They, too, had heard the stories. And yet, the humans across the table remained composed. Relaxed. Their expressions never wavered. The moment the treaty was placed in front of him, Zwierkan's neural implant translated its contents. Concessions were expected, of course. Humanity would demand reparations, restricted military movement, and economic restructuring in their favor. But the terms were not as severe as he had feared. In fact, they were reasonable. Almost generous. He lifted his gaze and met Wright's calm stare. This is surprising, Zwierkan admitted carefully. Your people suffered great losses in the war. I had expected harsher demands. Wright exhaled in a quiet laugh, tilting his head slightly. Minister, we're not monsters. Another smile. Zwierkan's grip tightened on the document. It was there again, that false softness. The same practiced, unreadable display worn by the human commanders who had obliterated entire battle groups without a single shift in expression. Forgive my caution, he said, measuring his words. The Zilthar have fought many species. We have never encountered a race quite like yours. Wright gave a small nod, as if indulging a trivial observation. I imagine not. The silence stretched, broken only by the quiet hum of air filtration units. The humans simply waited. No pressure, no outward signs of aggression, just that unbearable, knowing patience. Zwierkan inhaled, trying to steady himself. He was imagining things. Paranoia was a weakness, and he would not be weak. These humans valued diplomacy. They wanted peace. Didn't they? His eyes flicked toward the others in the room. Not a single human had lost their smile. Zwierkan straightened, forcing himself to focus on the treaty before him. The numbers, the clauses, the conditions, all carefully constructed. Logical. Measured. Yet something felt off. Across from him, Wright remained still, his fingers interlocked, his smile unchanged. We have made adjustments to account for the Zilthar's stability after the war, Wright said. A strong ally is preferable to a broken one. Ally. The words sat uneasily in Zwierkan's mind. Humans did not see allies the same way other species did. In their language, it often meant subordinate. He pressed a claw against the document, scanning deeper. The reparations were sustainable, the trade agreements beneficial, on the surface. But there were subtle restrictions. A slow, quiet strangulation of Zilthar independence masked beneath fair diplomacy. His tongue flicked against the roof of his mouth, a sign of unease. You understand my caution, Secretary. This agreement, though generous, leaves much under your control. Wright's expression never wavered. Naturally. You did lose. The words were delivered softly, kindly. No gloating, no cruelty, just a statement of fact. But that smile. Ziwire Khan suppressed the urge to shift in his seat. He had faced commanders who barked threats, warlords who bared their fangs, species that hissed their demands with open hostility. That, he understood. But humans? Humans smiled as they dismantled your defenses. Smiled as they tore apart your fleets. Smiled when they had already won. He knew this was no longer a negotiation. The moment he entered this room, the outcome had been decided. The humans were merely letting him come to terms with it. A bead of moisture formed at his temple, evaporating quickly in the temperature-controlled air. He had to push back, had to regain footing. Some adjustments may be necessary. Of course, Wright said easily. Ziwire Khan waited, expecting resistance. None came. The human merely gestured for him to continue, as if indulging a minor formality. The diplomat swallowed, skin tightening along his jaw. Every tactic he had prepared, every maneuver to gain leverage, felt meaningless. The humans weren't negotiating, they were watching. And they were still smiling. Ziwire Khan adjusted his posture, forcing himself to remain composed. He needed control, needed to reassert his authority in this discussion. He tapped a clause with a clawed fingertip. The trade restrictions here, these would prevent us from manufacturing our own fleet advancements for the next 20 cycles. Wright nodded, as if discussing something trivial. A precautionary measure. You understand. Ziwire Khan did. That was the problem. This wasn't peace. It was a containment strategy, a silent, unbreakable leash wrapped in the illusion of diplomacy. He glanced toward his own delegation. They remained stiff, uncertain, overwhelmed. Across the table, the humans remained still, their smiles unwavering. Something deeper settled into Ziwire Khan's gut. A cold, crawling realization that this conversation was an illusion. The humans had already predicted every objection, every counterargument, every desperate attempt to salvage ground. This was not a negotiation. This was the final step of a hunt. His throat tightened. If the Dominion is to rebuild, we require. You require peace, Wright interrupted. His voice was gentle, almost understanding. Ziwire Khan stopped. No aggression. No threats. Just calm certainty. The same certainty human forces had carried into battle, smiling as they tore apart warships 10 times their size. He exhaled slowly, scanning the room one last time. Every human present was watching, waiting. And still, they smiled. Ziwire Khan's fingers tensed around the treaty. His mind raced, searching for a move, any move, that wouldn't end with his people permanently bound by human oversight. But there was none. The humans had outmaneuvered him before he had even set foot on their world. The war had been brutal, but this was worse. There were no fleets to command, no weapons to fire. Just a room full of polite predators, smiling as they tightened the invisible chains around his empire. He could refuse. He could reject the treaty outright, storm from this room, demand war. But he had seen what happened to those who defied human peace. There were no second chances, no mercy. The Zilthar Dominion would not survive another conflict. Ziwire Khan inhaled sharply and picked up the pen. The humans did not react, did not celebrate. They only watched. He signed. Wright reached forward, retrieving the document with the same easy, unshaken calm he had maintained from the start. This is the beginning of a prosperous future, Minister. Ziwire Khan did not answer. He already understood the truth. The war had never ended. It had simply changed shape. And the humans were still smiling.